Hey everybody, it's Alec here, and we're back at it again with another episode of the Smashing Brands podcast. And today I am joined by,
Jennifer Masley. Hello, Alex. Thank you so much for having me.
yeah, the pleasure is all mine. I'm really excited to have a great conversation with you. And the first question I always like to ask is, how do you spend your time on planet Earth?
That's a great question. Trying to be a good human,
Like
first
all of
and
us.
foremost. And currently, I'm a mother of two. Um, Currently, I have been a mother of two for a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm in the coaching world. So I'm a holistic executive coach, and I infuse vitality, business into the, whole person approach to coaching, to personal growth, to highest best self. And I also have a cleanse business. It's a 3-day cleanse that I've been facilitating for over 15 years. And that's the catalyst for a lot of breakthroughs for my clients and for people
Yeah.
who are simply looking to clean up their inner landscape so that their outer landscape can be more beautiful.
I love it. And this isn't like one of those careers that when you're like 5 years old in kindergarten and people are like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Oh, I want to be this holistic business coach, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure it came after a lot of years of your life already, a lot of contemplation, a lot of experiences that made you feel compelled to do it. So I want to dive into that. Like, how did you get to doing what you're doing right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting because coaching has come to me a couple of different ways. When I was raising my children, I knew I primarily wanted to stay home, but I also wanted to stay active. And I was fortunate, but not planning to have children in my 20s. So I became a health coach, personal trainer. I was racing triathlons, and I found myself in that world. And as people would ask me to help them when I was doing my work and
Yeah.
workouts and eating really healthy, I realized I had a business opportunity. So it was part-time. It was fun. I had a beach boot camp company. I mean, I'm an entrepreneur at heart for sure. So
Yeah.
everything, that I saw myself doing and people being interested in, I would then translate that into something a little bit broader and more expansive. So that was my 20s and 30s. And then in my 40s, I started opening restaurants. And my husband and I went through the financial crisis in 2008,
Mhm.
which led me to rethink how I was doing life as a woman and as someone who, mostly relied on someone else for their financial future. And then I was really, really passionate about health and wellness and sustainability, and really, had that awareness early on in my life that what was happening to the planet was also happening to us as humans, and vice versa, that they're not independent of one another, that they're inextricably linked. And so
Well,
my restaurant work, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, what is that correlation? Like when you say they're linked, there could be so many different factors, but what are like the couple that like jump out at you that kind of form your theory?
Yes, like it's a great question. We are nature. We're all co-creating here on this planet, and the way that I view humanity and human life is we are an evolution, just like any other species on this planet.
Hmm.
And everything is linked. So from an ant to a moth to a tree, to our gardens, to the bees, to us, everything is necessary. The microbiome of our bodies and the biome of the earth are so similar, you
Yeah.
know. And what is the statistic? Like, we're 99% all humans and nature are the same at 99%, the same. And
Okay.
we look at that and it's like, oh, whoa, what does that mean?
Uh,
Why do we think we're so different? So,
yeah.
and just the toxicity of the soil, and having watched that evolution, and, knowing is a young 20 something that if we didn't start to pay more attention to how we were consuming, meaning everything we're purchasing, how we're discarding those things and what's being put into the manufacturing, not just food, but fashion, our furniture, what we use to build our homes, how we're heating our homes, the water that we're drinking, how we're filtering it, what's
Yeah.
going into the waterways, in manufacturing. So just all of that being linked to the end result of these lifestyle diseases that have now become just unruly. And the good news is they're lifestyle diseases, which means we've created them and we can also cure them, which is
Yeah.
really beautiful. And the way that I've walked through that space, when I started opening my restaurants, I was, it was 2011, 2012, and I was composting. I was in Michigan at the time, which is where I was born and raised.
Hmm.
People in the Midwest weren't really composting. Businesses certainly weren't composting. And so I ended up having restaurants in Michigan, Arizona, Nashville, and then also in West Virginia. And I had the opportunity to really educate not just my customers, but also other businesses on better ways, more efficient ways to do business, even if it was a little more costly upfront as a business owner. What did that provide long term?
Yeah.
Even in terms of the loyalty, I would have people coming into my restaurants, farmers that would say, we don't take our families out to eat because there's nowhere that we would take them that we feel safe. We eat at home because this is how we grow our food. And you're doing it. You're doing the things we're doing at home. And and so nothing means more to me. Nothing meant more to me, even than to hear that the efforts that I was making, was paying off. And I educated kitchen staff and wait staff. And, it's a big process, but it was a really fun 10 years, a really fun 10 years. And I was fortunate sort of by accident to exit right before the pandemic. And it was a pivot that I needed. I was running pretty fast. I opened 7 restaurants in 6 years, which is just not, I don't,
How?
I don't advise that. I
I have
don't.
so many questions. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't expect to hear this part of your story. It's like, how did you like get into that? Like, what was like, how did the opportunity present itself? Because you
Well, it's
seem
pretty
very
it's a
different.
pretty interesting story because like I started to say, my husband and I went through the financial crash we crashed and burned pretty hard. He was a real estate developer, and the rest of the story is like every other person in real estate during that time. Banks were recalling loans, and if you just watch the movie The Big Short, you can see what my life looked like. So that was pretty much
Yeah.
it. And so I had, a big, beautiful kitchen. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to stay in my house for much longer. Things were being, taken away. And that's what
Wow.
happened in those times. And I was very fortunate that I didn't focus on the problem. I focused on a solution.
Yeah.
And I knew the problem was not in my control, but I knew the solution was something that I could control. And so I started, I was cleansing myself. I started creating cleanses for other people. At one point, I had over 300 customers coming in and out of my house, throughout the year, and realized
Oh,
I needed to move out of my house and into an actual space, but had no money to do that because I was just surviving with my children and my husband at the time. Not only did we lose all of our money, but he had leukemia, and it came on very fast overnight, one of those very rare cases, stem cell
yeah.
transplant, spent a year in the hospital. So on top of the chaos of
How much in the hospital?
a year,
Oh, wow. Like straight in the hospital an entire year?
pretty much, he,
Wow.
had some rounds of chemo before we found his stem cell donor. And then once he was in the hospital for the stem cell transplant, it was about a year, that he spent in the hospital. So, and it was we were in West Michigan, he was in Chicago. So we had an apartment in Chicago and we would go back and forth. And I was fortunate that the local news in West Michigan the women, the ladies would come and do my cleanse. At the time, it was mostly women,
Mhm.
for health and wellness, and that pretty quickly translated into men being very curious about it. I found that very interesting to see how it was, 75% women to 25% men, and now it's for sure 50-50, if not more men than women. In
Yeah.
any case, these women who were local news anchors were doing my cleanse, and so they started asking me to come on the news and talk about it. And this 5 foot tall, amazing little angel Lebanese woman showed up at my door one day, knocked on my door and said, "I know what's happening in your world. I am opening a private gym and I'm going to create a little cafe on the end. And I want you to come and help design it. I'm doing all of the build out. Bring your equipment. You can lease it. That's all, like $600 a month." I mean, unheard of, I was like, "Who are you, angel? Thank you." Thank you, God.
Yeah.
That was my first location. Within a year, I had a second location. Within 2.5 years, I had 4 locations, and then I started a couple of other brands after that, and ended up with 7. So it was
Wow. Yeah, it's cool to hear your story because I have actually over the last few months I've had aspirations of opening up some kind of like health food restaurant concept because I make a lot of things like in my kitchen and I'm just like, oh, if I could just like sell this right now. And like I have all these unique concepts in my head, but of course, restaurants are a really difficult business. Then it's like you got to have the right connections, give you the right opportunities. So just hearing about how you were doing it, that's cool. I'm curious though, so you started off doing the cleanse stuff, and then but you talk about the farmer like taking his family to eat. So did this evolve into like food, right? More like meal style stuff?
right. Yeah. So my first concept was a juice shop concept with raw food. So it was
Mm.
really at the time into raw vegan foods. So it was all raw vegan. And my first restaurant was in Nashville. And that was a full scale farm to table, beautiful, just dream, dream, dream. And I was educating farmers and restaurateurs and helping people see the opportunity. Local food systems was very important to me, helping people understand that when we eat the food fresh from the farm, the amount of nutrients that we receive versus it being picked and then washed and then stored and then shipped, and we don't maybe receive the food for 3 or 4 weeks, and the amount of nutrients that we receive at that point versus 2 days later or the same day. It's,
Right.
and then regenerative farming, understanding what that is, even different than organic farming, a much different process, to really remineralize our soil. And so I was doing a lot of education. Um, but yeah, full food, and I don't eat meat personally, but I did offer meat at my restaurants because it was all humanely raised. It was local. I knew the farmers. I saw
Yeah.
how well they treated, it was a beautiful, beautiful time in my life that I got to really better understand our food system and
Yeah.
be a part of it. And I had done some work at West Virginia University. I had a location on the campus of West Virginia University and worked and helped rebuild their medical school food complex, which was really fun. And that was all LEED certified, and worked with some of the best architects in the country. I mean, it was a special time. And it was absolutely one connection led to another, led to another, led to another. And it was riding that wave. I really didn't, all I had to do was show up and say yes.
Yeah.
And I probably said yes to a few too many things. I probably looking, I was definitely in burnout mode when I sold. It was time. And that's now why I can coach like I coach, differently than when I started as a health coach,
Yeah.
being able to coach and help people, have those bumpers and stay within the boundaries that are healthy and look at life holistically. We're in a different time and space now, thankfully, where, I think most of us understand that if we're not paying attention to every aspect of our life, our mind, our body, our soul, then we're missing the point.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this a little bit more. So how would you like define like your niche? Like people come to you with the problem. What problem is that and how do you help people solve that problem? And I know it might not always be the same thing, but just in general.
Yeah, and that's where I distill it down to, and I say I distill it down, but it's like an hourglass. It's vitality, right? Like you distill it down into that small space, and then there's a big expansion to really get into this, to have the opportunity to look at our lives from through the lens of vitality, our inner fire, our life force. And it's more than just being healthy in our body, right? It's more than just being healthy in our mind. It's all of that combined. Where is our heart? And from there, where is our mind? And how is our, as a soul, as a spirit, how are we showing up? Are we enthusiastic for life? And not to say we're not going to have times where life doesn't hurt a little bit, right? And have painful days and sad days and grieving days, but that we see that beauty, there's beauty in both the pain and the joy, and seeing that together and helping people see that, okay, so your business over here is maybe not doing well. What's happening in your personal life? And how are you, the person that's connected to both, operating? And so let's talk about that, because it is, I've yet to see a case where what's happening in your personal life isn't also happening in your business and vice versa. There's a correlation. And so helping people find that piece, that link, it's like, oh yes, these are the things I need to do to round out my life so that I'm in a better spot to show up every day as a good leader, as a good business person, as a good role model for my children, my employees, my colleagues.
Sure. Yeah, I had a coach I was working with last year, and one of the things that he said was just in general, based on the principles that he taught, he said, "You don't have a problem." It was something along the lines of, you don't have a problem in your business. You have a personal problem that's getting in the way of the business."
There you go. There you go. That's right. That's right. And it's reflection, right? And mirroring.
Yeah,
So there are times that I get called in to consult or advise, very different than coaching, right? If I'm consulting or advising, I'm being asked personally to help solve a problem. If I'm
like, yeah.
coaching, right, I'm reflecting back, I'm asking the questions. And because I'm really practiced at asking myself hard questions, it's
Mhm.
very easy for me to know and not uncomfortable at all to ask the hard questions, and finding that softness to be able to ask without judgment. It's an opportunity to see ourselves. And when I started investing in myself with coaches, I realized that piece of being willing to invest in ourselves and being willing to invest in our expansion. To me, it feels like everything, because it's like portal doors open at that point.
Yeah,
So it's, yeah.
for sure. And especially as coaches, it's like it's ironic if people are like investing in us if we're not also investing in ourselves, right?
That's right. I always say, if you're a coach, you have to have a coach, and not maybe 24/7, but certainly on the regular doing the work, however that looks.
So who do you feel like who are you most excited to work with right now? Like what are some of the problems that are going on in their lives and what are you working with them on to solve those problems?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting that my early work in food was all, organic by nature.
Mm.
Everything in my life has really happened very organically. And you noted this, like when I was 5 years old, what did I think I wanted to be?
Yeah.
I mean, famous, like reading Tiger Beat magazine or whatever it was at the time, looking at all the celebrities, any good 5-year-old story that
Uh,
so there wasn't really a thing, I never had the thing I wanted to. And I remember and I'll circle back to what you just asked me, but it feels like part of the equation here. I remember, my religious education teacher when I was in middle school, and she said, if you don't know what you want to be when you grow up, she said, just ask God to put you where they want you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, and that's that's something that I sit at my altar every morning, and I have since I was 14 years old, and every day, put me where you want me. Where can I do my best work? Show me.
Yeah.
And so that's been a really interesting exercise in just allowing and letting go and living organically through life and having desires and then watching it show up. And so as I've coached people, I've just allowed, because during the pandemic, I had some people call me knowing I had exited, and it was just a very natural progression. Like, we're sinking over here, we need some help. And so after like year two, I started to see this pattern where I had men who were founders, CEOs, who just needed help with their own personal business, whatever it might be. Definitely more in the executive, like true spirit of executive coaching, like sitting by their side, reflecting to them. And then women were coming to me and, well, really all ages, late 20s to late 40s, entrepreneurs who were wanting to leave their work, their current job, and start their own business.
Mhm.
And I love both. I love a good creation opportunity to help someone create and it's like I always say coaching's like, you walk to the edge of the cliff and then there's this big drop and then beyond that is this white liminal space and you have to, you know, a good coach is going to hold your hand and make sure you get over that
Yeah.
gap. And then you're on the other side in this white liminal space. And then what? And that's one of my favorite opportunities to work with people is in that space of what's next. And again, I also love let's see what the real problem is here. It's usually not what people think it is, and typically it's fear.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fear that gets, some people are very clear about their fear, and it's a lot of people it manifests in different ways. And then once we get down under and find out what that fear is, it's always surprising to me the number of people who are afraid to really live.
Yeah. Why is that? We care too much about what other people think.
That's definitely part of it. I feel strongly that Marianne Williamson says it best, right? We're afraid of our own power. And I do see that when I've had people say to me, and I appreciate the honesty, like, I don't think I can expand anymore right now. Like, I need to just, I think I'm good. Like, I can't imagine myself going any further, and
Ceiling, that invisible ceiling.
yeah, yeah, that's right. And for me, I don't have a lot of fear. And if I do have
Been
fear,
through it.
I know I've been through it. That's true.
It's
That's
hard to fear something that, you've already been through, I mean, that's how it's like do the thing you fear and the death of fear is certain, right? So I think you faced a lot of your fears. You've gotten
that's
past it.
and that's right. I think I have a lot of blind optimism and courage, just by nature. But it's like I'm just going to go find out what that fear is and what it means and why it's holding me back. So
Yeah.
I don't like to be held back. I don't like anything to control me. I want to be free to feel and do and play in this human experience as much as possible.
Yeah, because it's like, hey, even if something does happen, you'll be fine. It's like, let's think about the top things people fear. So fear number one maybe is losing everything. That's
Yes.
happened with kids. Like made it
Yeah.
out. Like you don't
I had
have that.
$5 in my checking account. When I
Yeah.
found out we lost all of our money, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, you've been through that. A loved one having a major health scare, you've been through all of that. So just observing, like, I'm not surprised you don't have a lot of fear because you've been through a lot of adversity in your life. Yeah, and you've overcome that. But I guess my question for you is, how can people better overcome their fears without having to go through all of that stuff?
Yeah, that's right. And I have worked with some people who have lived pretty charmed lives, and I lived most of my life has been pretty chaotic. That's something that I'm pretty happy. I'm very happy to say it has not been the case recently, so that feels really good, but there's been a lot of chaos in my life, and I've worked with people who have very charmed lives, and when something happens in that space, it hits people really hard, to your point,
Yeah.
because they maybe haven't had to or had the experience of, they've read about it, they've heard about it, but until we personally experience. And so for fear is an interesting concept, because it really is, it doesn't exist unless we allow it to.
Yeah, we bring purpose to it. It's like I've mentioned this in a lot of podcast interviews recently, but just because it comes up so frequently, but it's just like all this fear just comes down to self-centeredness.
Yeah, there you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
'cause if we weren't attached to things and being looked at a certain way, or oh, what about me? If we were just so focused on other people, like what would there be to fear? It's
Well,
all
also, I think it's that for sure, and it's also the survival, right? Like, if my job goes away, if my savings account is no longer there, or my checking account, or whatever, monetary
but here
these
in
people
the
have.
States, like you're not gonna die like in the States, you
No,
know?
people think, I mean, it's shocking. You would be so surprised, that scarcity mindset for people.
Hmm.
And it's people that, can have a lot of zeros behind and still be, because they've got a threshold that they feel comfortable, right? A
Yeah,
lifestyle that they've created, and that's okay. There's no judgment. But that opportunity to remember that all of this is temporary. And
yeah.
also how powerful we are as creators. I have
Hmm.
I have learned that through, through all of the chaos in my life.
Yeah.
And also just the abundance of the spaciousness that I've allowed myself to have. Creation doesn't always have to come in chaos, although that is a perfect catalyst for creation. Chaos, right?
Or fear.
Fear, chaos, exactly. And getting to that point where we can have the abundance and the spaciousness and create from that place,
Hmm.
super powerful and
Yeah,
potent.
a lot more sustainable.
Yes, yes, yes.
So what are you like most excited about like right now in your life that you're working on and all that? Like when you get out of bed, you're like, I like the fact that I'm going, your life is less chaotic, you're not running restaurants. Seems like you're doing work you're ultimately more passionate about than other times in your life. Like what are you most excited about in your life over like let's say the next year or two?
Yeah, that's a great question. Coaching, obviously, I love it. I love the human experience. I love the human condition. I love to meet people and be challenged. So that's, who am I going to meet today? Even if it's not a client, but what human am I going to meet today that's going to maybe shift some perspective for me? So like every day is an adventure. So that's fun. I
Yeah.
love my cleanse business because the people that experience, there's something very special about it. And I say that because that's what I'm told repeatedly. I mean, I've had thousands and thousands and thousands of people who have participated in my cleanse, and what they receive, and it's so special, it's the breakthrough moment for a
Mhm.
lot of people, and I just
Interesting. Why
it's
is that? Why is a cleanse a breakthrough for so many people?
well, for a couple of reasons, because we don't realize how much we think about food. We don't realize what an emotional crutch it is, whether we're eating more or less, not
Mhm.
eating, right? It's both. It's that control. When we create space in the body by removing the toxins, by eating, 800 very nutrient dense calories, which is what my original cleanse is. I've got two now. One's a broth cleanse and one is the original. And when people start to release these toxins and they have the spaciousness, because they're only able to eat what I give them, right? And so there's all this space in between that they're not snacking. People will say to me, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I went to Panera every day at noon and got in line before I realized I couldn't be there, or I was walked to the refrigerator every day at 4 o'clock." So the
Yeah.
patterns, the habits, the awarenesses, but even more than that, it's the spaciousness that is created when those toxins are released, and the number of spiritual experiences that people have. Just it when it first started happening, it blew my mind. Because I just didn't expect it. I mean, I was having those. I don't know why I didn't think anybody else would, but
Yeah.
they were, and they have. And I've had people connect with people from beyond, close relatives that have passed. I've had people have massive breakthroughs in what they want to do, major pivots in their life that are very positive. Health, obviously, people have lost upwards of 150 pounds starting and being catalyzed by, participating in the cleanse once a month for 6 months, lifestyle diseases being cured. So the spaciousness, and people start to realize, oh wow, even though I knew for 3 days I didn't have to think about food, all I did was think about, oh, I wonder what I'm going to have for, oh, where am I going to go for? And it's just those habits. And so people realize, oh, these habits that I have ingrained in my subconscious about food, it's not just food, it's more. What other subconscious patterns do I have?
Oh yeah.
Right? So people start to really connect dots on a deeper level, and it's so cool to see. And I've got a big project I'm working on that I can't talk about yet, but it's more it's interesting. It's human condition, human experience, and it's in the AI space a little bit. So
Cool.
uh it's something that I'm super excited about. So between my, current work and then this potential project that's coming to life, creation lights me up. So anytime I can
Nice.
be learning and growing and expanding, it's just like life is so good.
I love it. So, Jennifer, I have one last question for you.
Yes.
Let's say it's the end of your life. You've done everything that you've wanted to do. However, there's nothing to show for it. There's no content, no podcasts, no books, nothing. But you have a speakerphone. You can talk to the entire world and share three truths that you know to be true about the world around you. Wisdom for all the people. What is it?
Ooh, this is good. Three, not just one, but three. Well, fear is an illusion.
Mhm.
Fear is an illusion.
Yeah.
So go to your fear. Go directly to your fear. That is the only way to shine the light on it. You'll see that it's an illusion. So that's the first thing. Our vitality is our birthright.
Mm,
It is who we are.
mm.
We are life force energy, and it is our birthright to be here now, enjoying our lives, even when it's chaotic.
Enjoy ourselves. That's one of mine. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, play, 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 play. It's your birthright. And awareness. I think more awareness, more reflection, more personal awareness is always a good thing, because when we can look at ourselves and see how we are operating, the judgments that we have, the fears that we have, the joys that we have, all of it. And we are, what was the statistic? 99% alike, all of
Mhm.
us.
Yeah, yeah.
The judgments that I have on you are the same judgments are being reflected back to me. So just more awareness, more
Oh,
kindness.
that's deep.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that's it. And when we start to see through that lens, as I have started to see through that lens, life has shifted into just it's magic. It's the awe and wonder. Such
Amazing.
such a gift.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. And where can the people find you, Jennifer?
JenniferMasley.com, Instagram Jennifer Masley, LinkedIn Jennifer Masley, and it's Masley.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for being an awesome guest on the show.
Alec, thank you, and let me know when you wanna talk about those restaurants. I love a good restaurant concept, so
All right, sounds good.
be happy to give you some thoughts.
Cool. Okay.